Welcome to the Grow Your Practice podcast. Hi, I'm your host, Chad Madden, owner of Madden Physical Therapy and Breakthrough. Join me each week as we dive into the best practices, systems, principles, tips, and tricks to help you grow your private practice. Hey everybody, I want to introduce our guest today. Matt Slimming is the CEO and founder of Star Physical Therapy in Northern Shore, I believe, Louisiana. Did I have that right?
In the New Orleans area. We have clinics on the North Shore and in New Orleans proper.
Great. And you have 8 locations, Matt?
Yes.
Great. So I'll ask a little bit about your history here in a second, but you're also a husband, a father of 3 that we just talked about. You have 2 in college and about to have a 3rd one in college at the same time.
Yes.
That sounds fun. And and you're also the CEO and founder of Star Management as well, where you help physical therapists with centralized management services.
Correct. Yes.
Yeah. So what did I miss there in the intro? Anything that you want to fill in for our listeners?
No, you did a great job, Chad. I wanted to, before we get started, I wanted to thank you, obviously, for having me on. I really appreciate that. It's nice to chat to you, and it's great to see your face again. But I wanted to also thank you for the work you've done, mate, in the PT industry. I don't know if people share this with you often enough, but you've been really the leading, I think, crusader for helping PTs become businessmen and businesswomen and serve their communities locally in a fashion of excellence, and allowing them to be able to focus more on their business of PT. And I know you didn't ask for this, but I just wanted to share with you that a lot of us out there really appreciate what you've done. And a lot of us feel like we're standing on your shoulders, man. I feel like you've taken a lot of blows for us and allowed us to start on a much higher level than we were. So thank you.
You're very welcome. I appreciate that, Matt. Couple places I could go. My gut instinct is just to ignore it altogether. But that's, I guess, human nature. The one thing that I'll say is when I first came into private practice PT, at least the culture that I felt was that we couldn't share. That it was a zero-sum game, and that if I was winning, you were losing, or if you were winning, I was losing. And I didn't really like that. And I had it in my mind early on that I wanted to share the right way to do things, or the best practices, or whatever, with other private practice owners. I think we have a major problem rather than each other in this country. I just looked this up, but 2019 numbers, we're spending about $12,000 per person in this country on healthcare. And if we look again where that money is going, it was 72% in 2017. It's now up to 73%, and it's growing. It's going to medications, injections, and surgery, diagnostic imaging, and less than 10% is going to all conservative care. 2.6% is going to PT and OT speech combined. Wow. So I think we have a bigger problem right now, which is our broken healthcare system. And when I keep that in mind, it makes work fun. I get to talk with private practice owners that are doing the right thing, that are really helping people get back to normal and are doing it the right way. And as physical therapists, we're at the bottom of the totem pole. Sure. in terms of reimbursements compared to just about anything else in healthcare or medical practice. So I appreciate the kind words. So I'll hedge my questions to be very gentle the rest of the way through.
What a smart move that was.
Yeah, pretty good. I appreciate it. So can you, because I think you have a fascinating backstory. Obviously, you don't have a New Orleans accent. Can you tell everybody, where you grew up, how you got started in private practice? Just bring us up to that point would be great.
Okay. Born and raised in Australia. Lived in a town called Adelaide, which is on the south coast of Australia. It's a great city. It doesn't get the acclaim of Sydney and Melbourne, but it's because it's a little bit harder to get to. But it's a beautiful city on the coast with wineries and valleys on the north side of it. Lovely place to grow up. About 1.5 million people now, I think. Just a lovely place to grow up, very safe, very easy place to grow up, surfing and all that kind of stuff. Was into sports like a lot of us PTs were, and so got into PT through that route and went to PT school in Adelaide. Finished PT school in '93, and Adelaide, part of Australia, is a socialised healthcare system. So in that environment, PTs didn't, at least don't in Australia, do very well compared to the US financially. That may have changed a little bit, but still, actually, just a side note, I was back there January of 20, just before COVID. Glad I made it back in time. And I was asking about insurance involvement in physical therapy there, because I didn't know what's been going on. And there really is very little, if any, Medicare type reimbursement for physical therapy. You get a couple of sessions maybe. So it's a tougher game there. So glad I came here, but came here because there were jobs in the US for physical therapists at the time. There were jobs in Australia too, but they were a bit tougher to come by, and they were not as generous in pay. So got a recruiter, and back then, the recruiters were all the rage for us Australians. They would find us these locations, and I remember there were places on offer like Medicine Hat, Canada, and from an Australian perspective, that sounds like a great place to be. Canada sounds gorgeous. Then you look up the climate of Medicine Hat, and if you're used to a warm climate, it's not the place to be. So it was funny. You had to do your own due diligence, and my recruiter was lovely, and I said, look, there's a couple of things I'd like. I'd like to be in a city that is coastal and has some surf, and I've heard that there are some US cities that were a bit more dangerous than what I'm used to growing up in. So I'd like somewhere a little bit safer. And I was only going to be here for 6 months in my plan, maybe a year. I was going to travel the US, get a good grasp of what the country has to offer, and then travel through Europe and eventually go home and start a practice, perhaps. So my first gig, my recruiter said, look, I've got a couple of options for you. One is in Jacksonville, Florida, and the other is just out of New Orleans. She said, which would you prefer? And I said, well, which is safer and which has the best surf? And she said, well, it looks like on the map, it's coastal, New Orleans, and there's a town in Mississippi called Waveland. So I'm guessing there must be some good waves there. My advice is go to New Orleans. So came to New Orleans first, didn't go to Jacksonville, that apparently has fantastic surf, but came to New Orleans, and of course Waveland is a town in Mississippi that has no waves. I actually tried to research today because I was thinking Chad's going to ask me, and I couldn't find any reason why Waveland was called Waveland. But got here and was sad about the lack of surf, but had a great time and loved New Orleans. And then within about 6 months, I think, or a year, met my wife. So it's been just great since then. It was the right move, and ended up just staying rather than moving on and traveling the rest of the country. New Orleans is a hard place to leave. It's a pretty special spot. And so having done that, worked for another group for a few years, and then decided to open my practice in 2001.
Excellent. So you've been in the game for a while, 20 years or so in private practice. When you thought about that, did you always have owning your own practice in the back of your mind? Was that relevant, or was there a pivotal event, maybe like having children or raising a family, something like that? Was there something that pushed you over the edge to pull the trigger to open your own practice?
Yes, I think it was. I was working for probably, I think, 7 years with a company in this area, and they were doing pretty well. They were probably trying to grow a little bit too aggressively, and that gave them some challenges. They were in Texas and Louisiana, and I was really enjoying the role I had with that company. I was helping them open clinics in Texas, and so I had a bit of a management role. But they had some struggles, I think, just because of, as I said, aggressive growth, and it led to a work environment that wasn't ideal. And And so I was at a point where I probably had the expertise at that point to do it myself. And I thought, well, gee, I don't want to stay here and, watch something blow up around me and maybe, affect my situation. So it was just that. I knew I was going to stay. I was going to leave them. So the obvious solution was to open my own clinic, and didn't have aspirations of having more than one. Just thought this would be a nice way to raise a family, as you said, having kids.
Yeah, that's great. I know many of us have that jaded work experience somewhere where even if it wasn't going to blow up, as you said, there's usually something that we think that we can do better. We know that we can do better when we're out on our own. That's great. So the initial goal was maybe one location. Now you have 8
Yes.
that I can see. Is that correct?
Yes, that's correct. Yes.
Okay. And so what if you think about the last 20 years? So think about the expectations that you had going into practice, and then what you know today, right? What are some of the 2 or 3 key learnings that you've stumbled upon or had to learn as a necessity as you've grown your practice, Matt? Because you've done pretty remarkable, you and your group.
Oh, thank you. Yeah. I guess the couple of things that were key, and I wish I'd known earlier. The first is that I also was, once we opened and things were going well, I was trying to grow fairly quickly. And we opened up, we had 3 clinics within probably 2 or 3 years, probably, something like that, 3 years, maybe 4 years. But we had no systems, and we had, not great quality control over anything. So it was that situation of, the owner trying to do everything and juggle all the plates. So that was the first thing. Is like, oh gosh, we've got to have systems. And I guess going along with that, we've got to run it like a business, not like a club, where anything goes and we just take care of people and hang the expense. We're just going to be nice to everybody, and it had to be a business. So I think those were the 2 key things: systems and be a business. I think had I been aware of those earlier and had taken the time to actually get the training that I could have used back then, things would have been better.
That's great. So the one thing that stood out to me, and in reading through everything that I could find online, and by the way, if you're listening to this or watching it right now, Matt, how many times have you been in Impact Magazine? Quite a few, I believe, right?
Yeah, probably 4 or 5 perhaps.
Okay.
Maybe, I don't know, maybe more. I don't know.
Mentally, I gave you credit for a dozen, but I know when I go through and I get the issue, I always scan who wrote the articles. Every time that I see that you authored an article, I go and read that right away. Always enjoy that. So thank you. The one thing that you do frequently, Matt, is you'll quote Jim Collins or Peter Drucker, or I think I saw John Maxwell in there as well. You're obviously well read. Is there any? Just a second ago, you referenced building systems and learning and having to learn how to build systems to grow your practice. Who do you admire? Who are you reading? And who are you still following over the last 20 years?
Okay. I'm actually a very poor reader, Chad. Do
you do Audible or something like that?
No, I'm old school. I like to read, and I read very slowly.
Okay.
And I find if I read a book quickly, I don't glean anything from it. I'll think I'll glean something, and then 2 years later I realize, gosh, I've got nothing out of this. So I have a laborious process of reading and highlighting, and then coming back and writing notes on a book so that I can retain the knowledge. So it's not pleasant. It's a drag, and it's very slow. So I'm not that well read. I've just picked up a few pearls over the years. But the E-Myth, I think, is a book that comes to mind, and I don't recall the author, but it was
Michael Gerber.
Okay, and thank you. Related largely to building systems and checklists and things like that, I think was a big part of that. Correct me if I'm wrong. It's been a while.
No, that's right. Exactly. Michael Gerber. It's where I think he penned the line, "Work on your business," or the concept, "Work on your business rather than in it."
Right.
And that initial book, the E-Myth, and then his sequels, for lack of a better term, because he applied it. I think he did the E-Myth Revisited and also applied it to healthcare and service providers and everything else. The premise there is that you and I were trained as physios or as physical therapists. We're trained clinically. We're not necessarily trained in marketing systems, or you talked about quality control or billing systems or financial management and pro formas or financial projections. We don't have training there. So we have aspirations of creating an impact in an area, whether it's New Orleans, greater New Orleans area, or Texas, central Pennsylvania, wherever that may be. But we don't necessarily know how to do that. And we assume that, if we have high quality of care, that everything else will take care of itself. So every article that I've ever read by you do reference systems quite a bit. Is there one, if you can think about back through your journey, your private practice journey, is there one system in the beginning? Because usually we fall into the syndrome of, once I fix this, then I'll make it, right? Was there one system in the beginning that you put a lot of attention on and really resonated for you in terms of building that out?
Gosh, so that one system that was what I thought would fix it all. I think I was involved in fitness sales, fitness center, health club sales in a prior job as part of the PT management thing. And one of the great lines that stuck with me in training with those guys, and I can't remember the guy's name. It was Ed Koch, Koch, said, one of his lines was, "Inspect what you expect." Inspect what you expect. And so the idea of you just can't tell someone or train someone in something and wipe your hands and think, good. There's got to be an ongoing, often exhaustive process of making sure that what you told and you expect to get done actually got done. So I think that was probably pretty key early on.
Great. So I'm taking that to mean that you had metrics in your practice, and at some point, if the metrics aren't going exactly as you expect them to go, you had to go in and do an audit.
Yep.
Right. Yep. To look at what was really going on there.
Yep. Yeah.
Cool.
And so if you're asking an early metric, an early system that we felt was crucial, I think early on we looked at visits per case. That was a really important one because that seemed to tie in extremely closely. Then we began to measure a lot of other things, and I know you talk about this, but we obviously measure the units per visit, and the NPS score, and all these kind of things. And what we found was that a really high driver and determiner of whether you're doing a good job is your visits per case. Mm-hmm. And the idea is that people obviously, people, as much as they love us in their clinics, there are plenty of good reasons to stop coming, financial and time. Mm-hmm. So if you're able to, keep someone coming closer to as long as they need to get 100%, the closer you can get to that number, the better, and it shows that there's that connection, that relationship, that you're providing value and all those kind of things. So that visits per case was a big number for us.
That's great. We very similar here. We noticed that. You shared a Peter Drucker quote in one of the recent articles you wrote, and I don't remember it exactly, but it's something about culture beats everything else. It seems as
culture eats strategy for breakfast.
You got it. Yeah. So love Peter Drucker as well, and a big fan there. Can you talk about how you apply that to your physical therapy business and STAR management as well? Just how you think about that, how you apply that, when you're hiring team members, when you're cultivating your team and curating your team, and you're growing.
Yeah, it's a deep subject, obviously, and Gary Vander, however you say that last name.
Let's go Gary V.
Gary V, there you go. Yeah. he talks a lot about culture in some of his talks, and how it's everything. It's and most importantly, it is the way that the owner feels about and treats people. So it's so important for us as owners to put our employees first. As part of our mission statement, it probably needs to be that our team is their interests are represented in there somewhere, because if we're taking care of them with all their warts and wrinkles and failings, then things will usually go much better. So now that's not natural to me. I'm not that nice a guy. I learned a few years ago, when we talk about leadership, there are kind of two sides to leadership. There's production and health, right? So we're either leaning toward production or we're leaning toward that healthy, create an environment of happiness, making sure our team's good and all that. Traditionally, without realizing there was a difference, I've always been more on production. My feeling was, as long as I'm achieving growth for the organization, as long as I'm allowing elevation of staff to higher positions, then I'm doing my part. These guys will be grateful. They'll be getting paid more. They're going to be happy because things are going well in the organization and everything's going to be rosy. But I learned that people need more than just success in the clinic. They want a connection. They want relationships. So that's been a big takeaway for me in my work and also my family life, that I need to pause a little bit and spend time with people. So to that end, in culture, I've had to work really hard. And what I've done is, in our organization, and now for the benefit of other groups, because I try to do things very analytically, we measure culture, and then we define the level of culture related to goal in a number of areas. And then we implement a plan to improve culture. So for example, we'll do a questionnaire for all the employees on questions that relate to two things: the core values of an organization, right? So how are we doing at living out these core values? And also questions related to other areas of culture that are important. For example, how easy is it to prioritize family when you're working at Star, for example? So we'll get these questions answered both in the areas of how we're living our core values at work and some other really important parts of work culture. We'll analyze that, and we'll get a score for each one. And then we'll have our leaders, we'll share these results with our leaders, and this is done by department. So we know, for example, in Clinic B, they're over 90% in all these areas, but there's a couple of things that are under 90%. It might be that one of the cultures, the core values might be innovation, and that's a bit low. So it will share the results with that clinic, that department, and we'll say, okay, let's talk about this. Which one of these do you want to improve? And we'll take a 6-month plan, and we often will just have them do one thing in that department to improve culture, okay? Because you can't tackle culture at all components at once. It's not something we can fake. It's not something we can really create a system around as far as maintaining it and improving it. It's really got to come from the heart. So we might work on that idea of how do we make family more, how do we make it easier for family to be a priority for work. And we'll just take that one thing and take an idea and work with that for 6 months. And then we'll reassess culture. And I think what we find is, when we work on one thing, we find that the other areas of culture improve as well, because there is that awareness, oh, the owner it cares about this thing, and these cultural things are always important to employees. He cares about these. So the job satisfaction, the engagement in other areas goes up as well.
That's great. And we're very similar. We put a lot of work into the core values and the culture that we're creating, and really, being true to who we are. I know one of the two follow-up questions I want to ask you, Matt. You had in another article, it was something along the lines of culture and being put. Oh, you were talking about bringing interest in, and I think you had the fictitious therapist named Fred, who was a conspiracy theorist and was sharing this and offended a patient, but it was really who Fred was, right? So can you talk about how you juggle letting your team members be who they are authentically, right? And then balancing that with, I'm sure you have a list of 3 to 5 core values that you're living by for your team as well. So can you talk a little bit about that, shed some light on how you think about that as a leader?
Yeah, great question. Yeah, Fred is not fictitious.
But that's not his real name, correct?
That's not his real name, but
Okay.
he's very interesting to talk to. So how do we find that balance between being their authentic self and enjoying that and bringing that to work, but yet respecting the core values and keeping culture intact? Coaching, I think, is the answer. And it doesn't require much coaching, okay? It comes from the leader. So people, as you know, tend to model the behavior or the mindset, values possibly, of people that they respect. When the leader is respectable, which comes from having integrity, caring for others, and all those kind of good values, then it automatically and oftentimes subconsciously sets the bar for behavior and what's expected. So really, when that bar's been set by a leader through relationship, right, through coaching relationship with the direct report, when that bar's been set and it's not met by the individual because he's spouting conspiracy theories and he's offending somebody, then all the leader should probably have to do is just show verbally that there is a difference between the bar and the behavior. And of course, that individual is not aware that there was a difference. Usually, if they were aware and they decided to act out, that's a different problem. But if they're aware, once they see that difference and you share it with them, it doesn't require much coaching if you've got the right people on the bus, to borrow from another guru. If you have the right people on the bus, of course, it makes everything much easier, and that's the first task, right?
Perfect. The other thing that you had mentioned there was core values. And do you have a list of core values that you're willing to share, or is there a top 2 or 3? It might only be one that you're willing to discuss, but is there something that you look for in core values that you review with your team and really sets that bar for behavior?
Yep. So core values are key, and it's hard for your employees to remember them, right? So you want to be, well, we like to be repeating them at every meeting, making sure that we're resharing the mission statement, talking about the core values, defining them, maybe giving them examples. Once a year, you might have a core values meeting where you say, hey guys, which of these core values can we live better? Just as an informal thing for all the staff to get around and have a vote of what we can do to push more of that. So core values are crucial. And we have 5, and in no particular order: excellence, innovation, fun. Golly, I'm on the spot. It's always easy when you're in a room with people.
You're fine. You're
excellence, innovation, compassion, fun.
Anything along grit? Grit, perseverance is a common one.
No, it's not. Oh, this is terrible. I'm going to have my my ST. You know what, Chad? I assume we paused this at this point.
I'll share our 3, and maybe that'll shed some. The 3 that we have today at both Breakthrough and Madden and Gilbert, my private practice, is grit. It's number 1, around perseverance, and being willing to do what it takes to get to a solution and what's within everybody's best interest. The second one is beginner's mind, that we approach everything with humility and we're always learning, right? And we're willing to be resourceful.
Love it.
And the third one is elevate others, being a team player. And we at Breakthrough, Carl put a lot of work into those, and we have three very similar values in the private practice. But did you find the fifth?
I did. Funny you should ask about my core values, Chad. Hey, way to go having three, because three is way easier to remember than five. So, and invariably in any of our meetings, we have a hard time getting the fifth. So smart move. So ours are excellence, compassion, integrity, fun, and the fifth is innovation.
Great.
Okay. So that was as easy as clicking a couple of buttons.
That's great. We all have our moments, Matt, and the bright light pressure.
Yeah.
All good. So is there a time? I guess what would be key right now is many owners are in terms of being timely, they're in a role where they're likely hiring. I think for many owners, the job market is kind of flipped. 12, 18 months ago, really difficult to hire a PT, maybe not so difficult to hire a PTA. But now with the recent economic downturn and recovery, there is definitely some shifting within the job market in terms of how easy it is to hire today versus relative to 18 months ago. Can you talk a little bit about how you use your core values and your culture when you're hiring for either your leadership team or your leaders are hiring for their respective clinics?
Great question. It's funny, actually, we're just seeing now down in New Orleans area that hiring is getting tight again. So there is the free market is very efficient, isn't it? It responds very quickly to change. We simply, I think that the best way to answer that question of how we hire related to core values and culture is we trust our leaders who are hiring. They're fully immersed in the culture with good, very tight relationships with management. And we ask them to hire people that they like and that they would want to spend the day with, because generally that's an indication that person has a higher likelihood of fitting within our system. So liking someone is key. It doesn't mean we don't always get it right. Sometimes we bungle and someone put up a great front and then we just realize that it wasn't a good fit. That's pretty rare. If we spend long enough with them and perhaps don't try to be the one making most of the conversation during the interview process, but just sitting back and asking probing questions.
Okay. And then I'm assuming you likely had either a promotion or a demotion or maybe even a termination in your history. Let me ask you, how many team members do you have today for Star PT?
We have all in all, well, it's hard for me to break it up, sorry. We have about 100 employees.
Total.
Yeah, but we have a fitness center as well. And so that has, I guess, about 20 to 30 employees there. So probably it's about 70 for Starol. I've got my HR manager nearby. Is that right? Yeah. Yeah, good call.
70 sounds good. So 100 total. Again, you probably have had at least a few promotions along the way, maybe some demotions or transferring musical chairs, and then maybe even a termination or two along the way. Can you talk about how your core values guide that conversation, or how you bring that into play when you're having those crucial conversations?
Yeah, I was advised by someone years ago to make a termination a pastoral moment. So we have a responsibility to steward our team, right? It's our we have a couple of mission statements. There's an internal and an external mission statement. And our internal mission statement talks about our responsibility is to help that team member grow and discover their strengths, discover their goals, and help them move forward toward those goals. So that doesn't stop when we're about to terminate someone. We still have a responsibility to take care of them. So it's got to be transparent. We've got to talk about why this isn't a good fit, and we've got to make it as much as possible good for them, right? So if it's not working in the organization, then they're not at peace. They're not having a fun day. The relationships aren't great within the company. They can't be, because they're not fitting within the culture. So we talk about that, and we do our best to try to guide them into a solution. If that's not with us, then we can give them some guidance in that. So that's kind of what we try to do with termination. It's not always possible. Sometimes relationship is deteriorated before we can get to that point. So it's not unfortunate. It's not always possible, but that's how we do terminations.
Very fair. One of our partners in the private practice, he terms it, they're seeking success elsewhere, which,
That's great.
and maybe it's immature of me to be laughing, but this partner, he literally does that to a T. He will make sure that they have everything that they need. If they're leaving on good terms, that they're in a position to succeed. He'll give recommendations, a reference if needed. He'll make recommendations in terms of, you might want to look here to work. We've done that in the past as a company, and he kind of takes it to the next level. But it can be a win-win for all parties involved.
Yeah.
That was the termination question around culture. So you talked about every 6 months or so, I believe you have a process where you do a review. You do it with the leadership team, and then it sounds like your clinical directors, is that what you title them? They're also doing it with their teams within their clinic. Can you walk through what that looks like, Matt? Like what a sample would be? It's probably, I think you said 30 to 90 minutes or 30 to 60 minutes.
Yeah.
Like, how's that structured, and what are you trying to accomplish on that? Because I really like the idea.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, it's been very impactful for us. It's a bit of work for the leaders to do, but it really sets us up for success with relationship. So this is our staff development system, and we first do it with someone, usually after 90 days for all the full-time employees, and where it's a document that we document their strengths based on the strengths finder that we do through Gallup. We document their values, their top 5 values, which we've sort of derived that from one of John Maxwell's little tasks that he does. We sort of internalize that. And then we walk through, we find out what's motivating them related to work. We find out what their goals are, how much fun they're having at work, what's preventing them from having a 10 out of 10 experience as far as fun at work. What are the 2 things that they feel that they should do better, stop doing, and do differently? And we ask them the same thing about the organization. What are 2 things? So there's a lot of questions like this. We ask them what their dream is. Their dream, either their work-related dream or their non-work-related dream if they don't want to work, if they want to stop working one day. We want to know what their dream is. And we feel like it's our responsibility to help them in all of those things. We want to help them move their fun level at work close to 10. We want to help them to achieve those dreams. We want to help them to reach their goals, all these things. So we're getting a really, really good picture. And out of this document, and there are a few more things to it, but out of this document where we're really doing a deep dive on that person, we create a 6-month development plan. And it's just a list of the few things that we can agree on would be important to achieve over the next 6 months. Now, some of those things, for example, if I'm doing this with a clinic director, some of those things are their responsibility, and some of those things are my responsibility to take care of. And usually that development plan of items for 6 months might be 5 or 6, big chunks. That's about it. So that's the document. And then every month when we meet with that employee, whoever it is, whatever full-time employee it is, every month we review some KPIs, that they're responsible for and their performance related to that, and that's attached to a bonus as well. But after talking through those KPIs and their bonus and what can happen to improve things, we'll review that development plan and say, okay, let's see what we've achieved, what we haven't achieved. Is there anything we need to add to that? So every month we're either subtracting or adding, or checking the box or adding things that are important to help that person grow. And there's leadership training involved in there as well, which is a kind of a bit of a different topic, but that's part of it. Our leaders are responsible for growing as leaders with all their direct reports as well throughout that 6-month plan.
Awesome. Am I understanding right? You have 3 companies. You have the PT, you have the fitness, and then the management.
Yes.
As well. And you're the leader in all 3. You're the CEO.
Yes.
Okay, so good CEO question for you, because I can remember in the early days of private practice PT, having my first business card and it said CEO on it, and then I realized that I had 1 employee, and I wasn't really sure who I was the executive of, maybe myself. But many of us on our journey, we fall into that, where we get to be, the title, and rightfully so. We took a tremendous risk, hopefully for future reward, and we deserve to be the CEO. In your role, Matt, where you have 100+ employees across 3 companies, how do you picture your role? Because it sounds like you said one component I heard was in terms of getting the right people on the bus, right? Which I think is the Jim Collins reference. I think so. The other thing that I heard you talk about is building systems, and the one that you talked about specifically is building systems for people development. And you also talked about being a good steward of your team and essentially their time as well. Is there anything else, any other gaps in there in your role as a CEO for the companies that you have? And if so, what are they? And if you want to expand on the people, that would be great as well.
I see the role of the CEO as the main role is the one to cast vision, to come up with a vision and share that vision in a meaningful way. A vision that people, hopefully written down in a way that people can follow and be excited about following. That's really the most important job of the CEO, of the head. That's not all I do, unfortunately. So everything else that I do, though, I should be moving toward, as you said before, Chad, working yourself out of a job.
Yep.
Right? That's something that you've shared. So I'm trying to work myself out of a job, ideally in everything other than sharing the vision, coming up with a vision, sharing that and teaching it again and again. That takes years, because you've got to get to a certain point of growth where you can, first of all, divest yourself perhaps of your your treatment responsibilities and so on and so on. And so now I'm doing a lot of things with Star Management Company, which I'm loving, by the way. I'm connecting with owners, and it's a blast, and I'm helping, and it's just fun to me. It's the most fun I think I've ever had in my life. But ultimately, we have to grow our people to the point where they can take over some of those roles, because my role really needs to be to look into the future and what's coming down, and getting the company ready for that and sharing the vision for that. So that answers that question about, I think, my role. Thinking about gaps that we haven't discussed in what I do. I think training, I do a lot of the training related to the type of principles that we talk about, leadership and culture, those kind of things. Mm-hmm. Training our leaders in that, because they're not getting a chance to read the books, or we actually did try it. You had a great idea where you have, and you do this, where your leaders read a book every, I don't remember if it's every quarter. I think it might be every quarter. I tried that. And that, when you have an idea and you run with it and it doesn't grab, It doesn't just dig into the ground. If for some reason, maybe it's the South, maybe we don't read as much down here, it didn't grab. And so I realized, okay, these guys don't want to read books that much, maybe. So, and neither do I, frankly. I just read what I find really important. So I have a role in teaching because they're not independently getting that information.
Mm-hmm. Very fair. That, as an aside, is an initiative you will have to constantly breathe life into. And I've just found some clever ways to be really annoying with it, where I will, if I read something that's powerful and I think somebody else will benefit, I will just keep talking about it until they finally say, you know what, I went and got the book, I read what you're talking about. Yeah, that has worked well for me, Matt. Follow-up question from that. Actually, this might be a little bit of a tangent. Where was that from? I'm blanking on who the quote was from, but Steve Jobs. Idea, problem, or he's talking about passion. It's a quote that you used, and it was something along the lines of, most of us, when we're obviously you're into your work very much. You want to help people, help patients through your practice, and also the fitness center in terms of helping people live healthier lives, and then also with your management company, helping owners grow their practices and ultimately serve more people. That Steve Jobs comment or quote was something along the ideas of there's an idea, problem, or wrong that you want to right. And, ultimately my question for you is, what is it that you're most passionate about in your work in terms of helping leaders, helping business owners, and also helping patients as well?
I think I am very passionate about the benefit of physical therapy. Obviously, I'm with you. Our healthcare system is a mess, and PTs are best positioned to change habits and to improve the health of the country. So that's a big thing. If we're able to do the very best job that we can as a PT company, if we're able to help other PTs do the very, very best job that they can, that's huge. I'm excited about the impact we're having in that. But I'm also really excited, perhaps more excited, about helping leaders in PT achieve their dreams and goals, because I know the pain of having a dream and a goal, not moving toward it, at least not thinking you're moving toward it, and feeling very, very frustrated and disillusioned. And then possibly giving up on that dream or goal because you think it just might be out of reach or not worth the effort. I think that's a travesty. Obviously, if someone has a dream that they're meant to achieve, they're meant to impact the world in a way, but the difficulties of this world keep them from doing that. That's tough. One of your questions, I think, for us in these podcasts is, what trends do we see in the industry? And one of those is, man, back when I was having these issues of growth that were really challenging me and gave me many a sleepless night, there weren't many options out there back in the 2006 through 2009, perhaps, when things were toughest for me. There weren't options of really accessible, great PT-specific help. There were a few guys, and there were some snaky guys too out there. But in the last years, in the last 5 years, we've got a bunch of folks like yourself who, there's still some snaky guys, but more good people who have integrity, who really are positioned to help and have the ability to help. None of us have the knowledge to help in every area, but there are now experts, you in marketing and management, different experts in financial management as well, that we can get the answers. We can get the help that we need. And so I think that's my passion, is helping PTs get to that point where they can get that support they need, to maybe not deal with that headache, or at least get that headache fixed, and they can keep moving forward and achieving their dreams.
Though there was a point when you were talking about the low point right now that can become a travesty if the resources aren't there. Was there a low point for you as a practice owner?
Yes, it was when I was, we'd opened 3 clinics and a fitness center. We built the building, it was just after Katrina. And so we built this building that we were kind of had planned to before Katrina. We just kept going with it. Hurricane Katrina. Sorry for those of you that don't know who Katrina is.
2005?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. It was the period after that where we'd had some growth, but I was trying to manage too much. I had too many direct reports, and only a couple of things were going well that was keeping us afloat. And it was a tough time financially, which caused everything to be tough. And at that point, I remember it was, yes, I was, any way out at that point would have been good. So that was a tough, those were the tough days. The cause of that tough day was trying to do too much too quickly by myself. So that's a recipe for disaster that I would encourage others not to fall into.
Yeah, there is, and I think many of us have done that, especially if you've ever done multi-locations. It's very easy to say, okay, I have this one roof operating really, really well.
Yeah.
Obviously, I can just sign a couple of other rent checks and I'll be fine.
Right.
There was a week or two ago here, there was an owner, the physio owner from Edmonton, who flew in here, and they were looking at expanding. And we talked about the importance of having to level up the systems across the board, because the marketing that's adequate for one location is a little bit different when you add 2, 3, or 4 locations. And you have to level up that system. The personnel system, where you're managing for 10 other team members directly, dramatically changes when that second clinic is 20 minutes away. The communication system has to change. You have to level up your billing system so you have tighter financial controls as well. And that is a tough lesson to learn. For you, Matt, if my math is right, you would have had 3 young children, probably all kindergarten to grade school age at the time.
Yes.
Anything that you want to share there in terms of, you talked about any way out would have been a good way out. Was there like a turning point for you where you kind of hit rock bottom and you said, okay, I'm going to resolve to learn how to do this and manage this the right way, and we're going to work our way out? Or how did you mitigate that?
Yes, I think a turning point was I got some help with marketing, because I had been doing all the marketing myself, every lunch, driving around, dropping off things, shaking hands, doing lunches, all that kind of stuff. And that suddenly became not enough. And I wasn't enough to do that in all the areas. So I saw, incorrectly, I think, I saw our challenges as not having enough patience. I don't think that was really it, or that was part of it. So I sought some marketing help and got some help that at the time was good enough for us to hire a marketing person and get them trained up and have a good little system that worked well at the time. So I think that was a turning point that made me, that gave me some breathing room, and that gave me a good example of, okay, this is how systems can work. They weren't very sophisticated in that initial marketing system, but it was something. And so that then set me on the path of putting together other systems, essentially having goals in every area, measuring, having a plan and a system in place, and checking up on that system.
Very good. You referenced leadership, 5 levels, John Maxwell, where essentially leaders over time, you're elevating yourself to be like a grandfather, great-grandfather of other leaders, right? So that's leaders leading leaders type deal. Can you talk about how you think about that, how when you're working with a team member and you recognize that they really have room for ascension, where they're just not saying, hey, I want more responsibility, that they're actually demonstrating that, and how you decide if somebody is qualified or has the potential competency to become a good leader.
Okay. Well, I think we all can become good leaders. I think that's within us. John Maxwell, what he did wonderfully with his 5 levels of leadership was take the concept, the abstract concept of leadership, and make it very clear and defined in these 5 levels. And you go from this level to this level to this level through these behaviors and these relationship characteristics. So we have tweaked John Maxwell's approach to one that we think is appropriate for physical therapy, perhaps, and is a little bit more helpful for physical therapy. We've created very creatively 6 phases of leadership as opposed to 5 levels. But we've created these sub phases, these sub stages of leadership within these 6 levels. So when we look at someone, we're able, someone's performance as a leader or non-leader, we're able to work out exactly where they fit in this. Let's see, it's probably about 30 to 40 different little lineations of leadership. Where do they fit in this leadership ladder? What relationship characteristics and behaviors are they exhibiting that indicate they're at this level 4B, for example? And then we identify, as I said, we assume that everyone can be a leader. That doesn't prevent any, lack of leadership ability doesn't prevent someone from moving up in our organization, because we feel it's our responsibility to train them to become a leader. I think it was, I can't remember the leadership guru that died about, I think in 2014. He was one of the first, Warren Bennis, I think his name was.
Oh yeah, Herding Cats.
Yeah,
that was his book. Yep.
I think he said that the greatest travesty of leadership is the misconception that where leaders are born and not made.
Yep.
And so I think that's crucial. So we feel like we can train anyone who cares about people to grow as a leader. And we feel it's our responsibility to do that by moving them up these levels. And it's not a difficult process, but it does require transparency, and it does require it to be obvious that we care.
Mm-hmm. Great.
That answer your question? I feel like I may have gotten off on a sidetrack there, Jay.
No, well, the one thing that you mentioned really quick was, I think you said 4B.
Yeah.
Were you referencing a level?
Yes. Sorry. Yes.
So what's within that context? What would 4B? If I'm at 4B, what does that mean?
Okay. I don't have the.
It doesn't have to be exact.
Yeah. So a stage 4 leader for us is generally someone whose direct reports are excelling, or they're doing well. They're hitting all their targets. So we view someone's leadership level based on how well what their direct report is doing. So okay. I'm a different level of leader with this clinic director compared to this clinic director, right? Because it's how well I'm responsible for how well they're performing. So stage 4 indicates that they're performing, they're hitting goals, they're going above and beyond occasionally. And so 4B may be something like within 2 months, that individual could be trained up to take over all of my responsibilities that are related to him. So that might be that's an example of 4B.
Okay. Is the letter indicative of like the transitional leadership or situational leadership, where like a 4A would be like you could delegate to? Is that kind of the idea there? I'm just trying to get a sense of what the phases are.
Yeah. Okay. Well, the general phases. So stage 1 is someone who is not in a formal position of leadership, but they're capable of leading others, within their department, for example. So you might have a technician who's, and maybe there's a lead technician. There are 6 different technicians, support staff, aides working together. But someone is really encouraging the others and sort of, staying behind to get things done and being a good role model. Well, that person would fall into 1.
Okay.
If I'm their leader, then that's a 1. The next thing is stage 2. And so when you're a stage 2 leader over someone, that means that people are under you and they're just following you because you're the boss. Okay. Mm-hmm. Stage three, now they're following you because they like you, because you've invested in them. There's a caring, there's a connection. Stage 4 is they're producing, and so on through stage 6. Stage 6 is very rare for someone to get to. That's kind of that matriarch position where you've got probably 2 levels of leadership beneath you of people who are leading, and that's rare for folks to get to. But that's an idea of how the stages go in our realm.
And then, okay, so I know you gave us a survey link. I'll make sure that's available here in the show notes. And can you talk a little bit about what that is? By the way, I started to go through it. So if you see an incomplete one, you can harass me.
Why did you stop?
One time, I had a personnel issue myself to deal with. But if you can shed some light, Matt, what that survey is and how that can help an owner, that'd be great.
Okay, yeah. The idea that a lot of owners, they would like to sell. That they feel like, okay, I need to sell, or I need to get out, or something, or I need some help. I don't know what I'm doing. This survey kind of helps someone determine, or helps us determine, because it doesn't give you all the answers. We're going to have to give a report to the person that takes the survey to let them know where they're at. But it provides information about what they're doing well, where they're doing pretty well, where they could do with some help, so that they can be thinking about if they get some guidance in some of these areas that they're weak, their life could be much more fun. So we're asking some questions that we feel shed light on whether a different area of their practice is doing well enough, and whether or not they need some guidance. For example, I think we have some questions in there about outside marketing. Do they have marketing staff? How much time does the marketing staff put toward outside marketing? What kind of, does their system include these points? That kind of thing would help us to know if, if you just had a little system for that outside marketing piece, that would really take a lot of pressure off you. Other examples might be billing. Are you getting this information from your billing entity, whether it's in-house or out-house? These are some things you want to make sure you're getting. If you're not, you probably want to ask for these items, that kind of thing.
Sure. So essentially, it's a vital check for their practice.
Good. That's a good way of putting it. Yeah.
Yeah. Great. Cool. So we'll make sure that's available for everybody. And the way that we got to this interview is you wrote an article, I believe it was in Impact, and you were talking specifically about owners that are exiting. So in terms of trends, that is something that has, since the pandemic had occurred, and the rebound from that. Probably 2 to 3 owners a week are messaging either via Facebook or texting me or emailing, hey, I'm thinking about selling. Can you point me in the right direction? So I believe, and talking with some other industry leaders, that the merger and acquisition pressure will continue to increase. Just because, owners are, I don't want to deal with this anymore. Let somebody else handle the centralized functions and just let me be a PT. In your article, you go through the different options, and obviously we can do, and I'm paraphrasing, so I apologize in advance. We can do an external sale, which most of us think about when we, if we're going to sell in 2 to 5 years and start getting ready now, it's going to be an external sale. We could do an internal sale, which would be a transition of equity over to an existing clinical director or physical therapist or team, key individuals that are internal. Or you bring up the third option, which would be a management team. Can you talk through just how to think about it and how you could help an owner think through that if they're listening to this and they're at that point right now?
Okay. Yep. Sorry, were you about to say something else?
Oh no, I'm good. I'm old and I had to move my back around because I've been standing for a while.
Well, I got a hematoma somewhere from your most recent exploits on the mat, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, we all get these frequent requests that we sell our practice to somebody, and I think you've shared that with marketing you need to see. It used to be 6 times that you needed to see something before you made the purchase decision. I think it's 12 now or something. I think you've shared.
I think it's up to 29.
Whoa!
Matt, it's ridiculous. Yeah.
Golly, I didn't know it was that high. Oh my goodness, I wasn't working. Okay. So, but because of that, and we've seen these emails that come through, apparently once we've seen the 29th email, we think, gosh, if I'm hearing so often that people want to buy my clinic, maybe it's time. I should probably just buy it. So I think just that volume and that frequency of the idea being put upon us, the power of suggestion, gets us to the point where we think, when on that bad day when things aren't going right, that maybe it's time to sell. And I propose that for some people there's a better way to get out of the misery. Now, and obviously, as I wrote in my article, there are folks for which this is the right decision, right now, and it's time to get ready. I would say that they want to work on their practice to make sure that they're getting the best price they can get for the practice. But it's right for some people, particularly if they're at a point where they really just, would like to be gone all the time, and grandkids are really important to them and those things. Maybe it's time. But for a lot of us, we can get rid of a lot of the things we don't like in our work life without getting rid of the things that we love. That one way is to perhaps achieve that by sale, but if we can also do it by bringing in people that are really great at those things that we don't like. And by doing that, we get to keep the tremendous value of owning a business. The tax benefits of that are tremendous. The great emotional and spiritual benefit of owning a business and stewarding that and being impactful in our environment, and the relationships we have with our team. I know when we look at our days, our good days, the best things about our good days are usually the relationships we've enjoyed with our team. So we don't necessarily need to lose those through a sale in order to get rid of the headaches. And these days, as I mentioned earlier, more than ever, we've got really good specialists in different areas of the PT business. Chad, you guys with your product X, I think it's changed name, but to what's the name now?
It's Growth X.
Growth X. Sorry.
No. It was Product X. It's going through some name changes for sure, but yes, Growth X. Yep.
Yep. Everything changes as life changes. So, you guys are fantastic at that. That's a huge thing for an individual clinic to have is that help with marketing. But whether it's online marketing, direct outside marketing, billing and collections, staff management, front desk processes, all of these things can not only be taught by specialists, but also managed by specialists these days. So we really are at that point where you don't have to hang on to these headaches. You can give these away either through to a management company or to delegate to someone in your organization, but with the right training. So that's kind of the point I really wanted to make there is that, and I likened it to someone saying, listen, I'm getting tired of mowing the lawn. I'm going to sell my house and go and live in an apartment so I don't have to mow the lawn anymore. That's what people are doing if they're trying to get out of the PT gig. ownership gig because it's a bit cumbersome sometimes.
Yeah, great analogy. I appreciate that. So internal sale, external sale, the management model, and just because curiosity killed the cat, the management model typically is a percentage of revenue for
It
various
depends.
services. Okay.
Yeah, it could be a flat fee. So billing and collections, percentage of revenue. But you can have different companies doing different parts of your management, obviously, different parts of your business. So you could have you guys doing the online marketing. You could have someone else doing the billing and collections, as a lot of people do. Someone else overseeing your front desk, and that would probably be more like a flat fee to oversee the front desk operations and make sure that authorizations are being done correctly and conversions are happening at a good rate and all these kind of things, all the way through to managing the PTs and helping them grow as leaders and all those kind of things. So you don't have to have one company doing all of these things. They can be done by different groups, and usually, often, if it's not directly financial related, like billing and collections, there's probably a monthly fee for it. Some people are concerned about the monthly fee of being locked into something like that. And we share that, number one, you often don't need to be locked in to monthly fees. It could be something that, hey, that time where you just feel like, oh, I can bring this back in-house, you should be able to do that usually. But also, the chances are that if you're paying someone to do it for you, they're experts, the ROI of them doing a fantastic job with that area is going to be far greater than the expense that you're incurring.
Yeah, I agree that usually when you bring the right person in, the next question or the next thought is, why didn't I do this sooner? Right. Right. Excellent. So final question for you, Matt. In looking forward to the future, I'm guessing your clinics are rebounding very well. You're near 100%, or maybe even beyond that. What are you looking? What's the future like in terms of planning for the PT practices, fitness, or star management?
For PT, we have a philosophy of slow growth. We opened our last clinic in the year before COVID, mid 2019. So we're just waiting for that it's coming along now. It took about a year before it started to move upwards. Once that's to where we like it to be, to making a profit comfortably, consistently, we will open the next clinic we plan to. But we're not in a rush. As an owner, you get to a point where there is less urgency for growth, and that's probably due to lifestyle factors, financial factors. When you don't have to, when there's not the financial motivation to grow because you're trying to hit a financial goal, then the urgency goes away. So we're looking at about one clinic every year or two. But if we stop at 10, that'd be fine too. We may never go above that. It's a good number. It's a manageable number. Fitness center, we did take a hit. Boy, fitness centers have been dealt a tough blow with COVID, and not a lot of great government support. A lot of PT clinics have done okay with PPP 1 and 2, but fitness usually doesn't have a high full-time employee population, so it wasn't quite as generous with fitness centers. But yeah, so we're seeing now that the senior population is coming back to fitness centers down where we're at. So just looking to the fitness center is for us and for a lot of PTs, it's just a wonderful way to brand your PT clinic, to increase exposure in the community, and to drive new patients to your PT clinic. So we look for our fitness center to direct about 18 to 20 new patients a month to that clinic that it's part of. So that's our goal, is just to get that back to that 18 to 20 as people start coming back. In star management, our goal is just to keep on helping people. There's, that is also a slow growth model for us. We don't bombard people with unnecessary marketing, but apparently if 29 is the number, I need to start.
It's yeah, we can talk more about data on that. Matt, this was fantastic. And I really appreciate you sharing your time and also your wisdom and experience as well. What's the best way for our listeners or viewers to get in touch with you if they want to learn more about what you do and what you're up to?
Great. Email Matt, M-A-T-T, at star, S-T-A-R, dash mgmt.com.
That's dash like the minus sign.
Yep. Yep.
Got it.
Yep.
So Matt at star-mgmt.com.
That's right.
That's great. So, and just a personal question, what's the last place you went surfing?
The last place I went surfing was West Palm Beach, back in I guess it was February. When was that? Yeah, February, I think. And it was not cold. I thought it was going to be chilly, but it was great. I took my son, my 22-year-old son, down there, and we had a lovely few days of just catching small waves and hanging out and enjoying some quiet time together.
That's great. Good share, Matt. Well, again, thank you so much for doing this. I appreciate everything that you're doing in private practice PT.
Thanks, Chad. Anything we can do to help you guys, because once again, we love what you guys are doing, and it's been a huge service to us.
Thanks, man.